Torah or Vayigash, page Memhei, bottom of the first column. Okay, Alter Rebbe is saying that Yehuda is called Apam Eidas Hashem, now I will thank Hashem, which implies that after Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, then you can come and thank Hashem for Yehuda. So the Alter Rebbe started to explain what's the level of Reuven. Reuven is Reuben seeing, which is the letters Aryeh, which was on the right side of the throne of Hashem, which is the level of Ava. And he says this is the love of Hashem that comes through meditation into the greatness of Hashem. And he started speaking the difference between Yochid and Echad and so on. So he says, V'hinei ksiv, it says in the Pasuk in Shema, B'chol levavcha, with all your heart, V'amen azal, b'shnei yitzerecha. Grammatically, you should have said B'chol libcha, with all your heart. Livavecha, with the two bases, the Gemara says, Yetzer tov and Yetzer hara. Hainu, shete'ava, b'chinas bal tshuva. What? 455. So the Alter Rebbe says like this: unlike public conception, tshuva is not only for sins. People think, okay, you sinned, you have to do tshuva. You don't sin, you don't have to do tshuva. He said no. Every person has to do tshuva. The Gemara has an expression, kol yamecha b'tshuva. Your whole life you have to do tshuva. Why? What does tshuva mean? Tshuva comes the word tshuva, to return. To return the neshama to the source. Before the neshama came into the body, the neshama is one thing with Hashem, and is bound up in the bound of life with Hashem, with Hashem. And it comes down from this glorious place. And it comes into the physical world. It says then, even when you in the body, even when you do think about godliness, it's still a limited meditation which is under the jurisdiction of time and place. Basically, the neshama is far, when it comes into the body, is far away from Hashem. Therefore, what is the concept of tshuva? Even a tzaddik, the neshama comes into the body, it's still far from where it was initially. So even the tzaddik, v'tzorach la'shiva, and you have to return it to Hashem. Aidei v'yitzaku el Hashem batzar lohem. Like it says in Tillim, they cry out to Hashem when they're afflicted, when they're in pain. Kitzar le'amokim. The place is very narrow. Shul b'chinas meitzah, which is limitation and boundaries. Balzen, concerning this level of tshuva, it says, Asher Eitzeisi as chameretz Mitzrayim. Meitzar is boundaries, limitation. Meitzar also means suffering. Mina meitzar karasi yudkei. Yeah. So he says, the whole concept of Yetzias Mitzrayim is to take the neshama out of the confines, the limitations of the body, and return it back to Eretz Yisrael, basically meaning to return it to Hashem. So he says, no matter who the person is, the person still has to return the neshama to Hashem, because when the neshama comes into the body, it's not the same level as it was l'mayla. Through the bitterness that the person will have, on the fact that he's not close to Hashem, he's very far from Hashem, the love of Hashem will grow. But yes, it says infinitely more, to become one with Hashem, just like the advantage, the greatness of light when it comes from darkness. Meaning, the ultimate level is when a Jew, and then like he says, that's why b'makom b'shabali tshuva. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, why is the Baal Tshuva greater than a tzaddik? And the Baal Tshuva again means the Belosa ben the diet Baal Tshuva. What does the Baal Tshuva mean greater than? Because the tzaddik is always in a level of kedusha. The Baal Tshuva who sinned, taking it simply, who sinned and was in the extreme of distance from Hashem through their actions, all of a sudden, the distance abstinence makes the heart grow fonder, dafka, the distance from Hashem causes the neshama to have a greater longing to Hashem than the tzaddik who is close by. A person who's close to Hashem, has love to Hashem, but it's not a longing, burning love of Hashem from the distance. The Baal Tshuva has it, like he says, the mashkanle, they're drawn to Hashem, b'chele yatir, with a much greater level of fear, that this revelation of Hashem should be revealed on himself, on the person, to the extent that even the body feels it. Meaning like this. The concept of tshuva, again, and he's saying it doesn't only mean for people that sin. The neshama of every Jew, the great Menasha Rabbeinu, is still in a body. It's still restricted, limited. It's not the same level. It's still under time and place. It's still restricted by the physical limitations of the body. So when a person feels that they're far from Hashem, that itself is the closest to Hashem. Feeling far from Hashem, that in itself is the longing to Hashem, and if you have the longing to Hashem, then you're with Hashem. So he says the concept of tshuva applies to everybody. It applies to everybody because every neshama is far from Hashem when it comes into the body. To the extent that the love is such a burning love of Hashem from thirst, and their powers will be transformed and return to Hashem, and they're like the transformation of darkness to light. And that's the whole inyan of tshuva, that every Jew has to do tshuva, no matter who the Jew is. And this is what it says by Reuven, Re'oi Hashem ba'oni. Hashem saw my affliction. What did Leah say? Hashem saw my affliction, and now He's going to love me. Ki ata yavani ishi. Look at the pasuk. She said, Re'o Hashem ba'oni. Hashem saw my affliction, and that caused the love. Pirshaydei anya merudi, through the affliction, humeridus hanefesh, is the bitterness of the soul. By the way, that's what David HaMelech says in Tillim, the famous pasuk in Tillim, that we have a nigm tzam lecho nafshi. My soul is thirsty to you. Kam lecho b'sari, my soul is longing to you. Be'eretz ksiya va'oyev, in a dry, desolate land without water. And then David HaMelech says, Kain ba'kodesh chazisicha, which means halavai. When I'm in Yerushalayim, I should have the same longing to you. Because then you're close. When you're close with somebody you love, it's a different level of love than when you're far away from them and you want to be with them.
When you say Hashem saw my affliction, it sounds like Hashem all of a sudden saw, I see what's happening with you.
That's what it says in the pasuk. Hashem saw his suffering, so he answered.
That implies that Hashem is not really with it all the time. Just all of a sudden.
No, he's with it. He's with it, yeah. No, Hashem's with it. Through this awakening from below, becomes a revelation from above, or upon like the face of water in the reflected in the water, meaning the way we act is the way Hashem reacts. So then what happens is, in other words, when we go out of Mitzrayim, we go out of through bitterness, and we feel far away from Hashem, and therefore we're longing to get out of here, to become closer to Hashem. So then Hashem goes out of His boundaries and limitations, which means Hashem reveals to us more than normally is revealed, more than the chain of Ishtaushnus. He said, like it says, by Yom, on that day when Mashiach comes, Tikra Ishi, we're going to call Hashem my husband. Now, what does Ishi also mean? My fire. Pirish Ishi, Eishali Mamish, which is Chuka Shemimata Lamaila, the longing from below to higher. Val Ishech Chukasech, like it says, you will long to your husband, which is Eishali Tia Bechinis Galus. In other words, like this. It's very interesting. After Adam Rishon sinned, Chava Adam, everybody sinned over there. So it says like this, what was the punishment for Chava? Alishech Shukasich. You're going to have a longing to your husband.
That's a punishment?
Yeah. Voyim Shobach. Okay. But it means, the pasuk says, Alishech Shukasich, you're going to have a longing to your husband. Now, let's understand, the whole inyan of Chet Das was pre-planned. Right? It was pre-planned. Why did Hashem want? Hashem made the Eitz Das to undo, like we learned, to undo the perfect world that Hashem created. Because Hashem created a perfect world. Hashem created, you have a clock alarm. Hashem, I pressed the line. Hashem created a perfect world. But that's not what Hashem really wanted. Hashem doesn't want a perfect world that He made, big deal. Hashem, of course Hashem can make a perfect world. So what did Hashem want? That we should make a perfect world. Now, how can you make a perfect world if the world is already perfect? So the answer is, you have to imperfect the world. So what did Hashem make happen? Chatei Tzadas. Right? Brought evil into the world. Now, what's the Aveda now of the Jew? Refining the evil, elevating the evil, and through the Eitz Das, the neshama even became lower than the neshama normally would be in the body. So therefore, the neshama now, well, Ishech Shukasi, the pasuk refers to every single Jew, not only Chava and the sin. This is the positive spin of the Eitz Das. Well, Ishech Shukasech means we're going to have a longing to our husband now that we're doing Avedas Habirudim, now that we're far away from Hashem. Not only neshama being in the body, now Eitz Das made evil, the whole mishmash of evil in the world. So now the avodah of the Jew is Ishech Shukati, you should have a longing to Hashem. That's the whole avodah of Torah mitzvahs, to have a longing to Hashem. And he says that's what it becomes Ishi Eishali, the chukah of below Tahai, like he said, at least Shech Shukasich, which is Eishali, should be one with the scholars b'ernts of mamish. Achi ishi eishali mamish, that mamish becomes one. That my fire and Hashem's fire, mamish become one. V'yamin itachabgeni, in a level of bechinas chibuk v'skalus, in a way of hugging and becoming one, to gili ernts of baruch hu mamish al nafshi b'chukazu, that the Jew mamish becomes one with Hashem. That's the level of Reuven. Reuven is Reuben, and he explained even the Yetzer Hara and the body should also love Hashem through the level of the distance away from Hashem that you are. That's the level of tshuva, returning closer to Hashem in a much, much, much greater way, and that's the level of Reuven. And he says, now, that's the union of Reuven, like he expressed before. How do you see Elokus? Through the meditation of Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Like that he spoke, Yachid, Echad, whatever. That's the Parsha Rishonah Shebekirishma, which is the level of Ratzah, the longing. Now we come to the second Parsha of Shema. What's the second Parsha of Shema? That's the level of Shimon, the second son. Why? Because it says, Im Shemaya Tishma'u. Listening. What does the second Parsha begin? If you will listen to the words of Hashem. That's the level of Shimon. What is that spiritually? The level of Shuv, of returning. In other words, we learned the pasuk says, "V'chayis ratzav v'shem." In Chazkel, the pasuk says, "Hachayis ratzav v'shem." The malachim are longing and returning, longing and returning.
Who'll say?
Who'll
say?
I'll say it. It's like the heartbeat.
I understand. I got it. I speak English. So what is this longing and returning? What is this? The malachim are longing and returning. So Chassidus explains that's the avodah that needs to be in the Jew. Ratzah v'shev. You have to have a longing for the neshama to want to be out of the body, to be one with Hashem, get out of here. And then at the same time, you need the level of returning because you need to understand Hashem doesn't want us to be out of a body, Hashem wants us to be in the body. Because only in the body can we transform evil to good. Because in the body, in the world, body itself, there's evil, and now we can transform evil to good. If a person pops off, then there's no evil to transform. At the same time, though, you need the longing to want to be close to Hashem. Which, by the way, that was the sin of the four people of what's the name? Nadav and Avihu, when their neshamas died, was because they had a longing without the return ticket. They just saw this level of godliness, they popped out of the body. That's not what Hashem wants. And therefore, that's a sin on their part. The same thing with the four scholars that went into, only Rabbi Kiva came back alive, normally, because they also had this longing for Elokus without the return.
So why Moshe told his brother they were higher than you?
Because they were a greater level, but that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants that they should not have that level of Elokus that they're one with, they need to be back into the body. That's why the whole concept of time, that the world is time and place is the world, is coming and going. Time comes and goes. Why does the heart hold?
The creation itself is constantly coming.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's constantly coming and going. So from one side, the Jew needs to have this longing, like Shema Yisrael, like he says, the meditation. How far I am away from Hashem. I want to come back to Hashem. I want to be close to Hashem. That's the neshama popping out of the body. That's wonderful, but that's not the one-way ticket. Hashem wants that there should be a shuv, Shimon, the second ben Tishma mitzvah, to do my mitzvahs, and so on and so forth, to be in a level that we function in the body, because this is what Hashem wants. What?
Is this what Yaakov saw in a dream, angel going up and down?
Yes. And that's the same thing like we discussed at the class the other night, Monday night. Why was Menasha older if Ephraim was greater? And he blessed Ephraim. Why was Menasha older? So Menasha and Ephraim, we learned, represent these two levels. Menasha means, Kinashan Elikim, I shouldn't forget my father's house. That means I should have a longing to go out to my father, to leave Mitzrayim. And then the second level is Ephraim. Ifrani Elikim, Hashem made me be fruitful and multiply in the land of affliction. That's the level of returning to be in the body. So that's why Menashe and Ephraim, we discussed, that in the avoid of the Jew is to have the longing and then the return. You can't have the return and then the longing, because if you get heavily involved in the return, you don't have the longing anymore.
What's so great about forgetting my father's home?
No, I mean by that means he doesn't forget. Doesn't the Hashem explain? By having a name that Hashem wanted me to forget my father's home, that itself means I'm not forgetting it. But that is the avoid of the Jew, first Menashe and then Ephraim. Now, of the two, what's the ultimate purpose? The ultimate purpose is the Shuv, Ephraim, to multiply in the land of affliction, meaning to elevate the world to Kedusha, evil to Kedusha, Mitzrayim to Kedusha. But in order for you to be in the world and not become affected and enjailed in the world, you have to have the first attitude of the longing that I'm connected to my source. When you feel connected to the source, then you don't fall down. Like the famous story with Rabbi that he lived on top of a mountain. He lived not in California, where he lived in Russia, where the mountains froze. Okay, so he lived on top of the mountain, and the mikveh was at the bottom of the mountain, or the hill, whatever. And every day he would walk straight down, no matter ice, whatever. He walked straight down the mountain to the mikveh. And it was like a wondrous thing. So people wanted to make fun of him. Simple, chutzpah yaks. They wanted to make fun of him, and they said, we could do it too. So they did it, and they fell and they broke their bones and everything that happened. So the people asked the mayor, so Taka, how do you do it?
That's a secret.
What's the secret? And he answered in Yiddish, he said, when you're tied above, you don't fall down. When you're tied to Hashem, then you don't fall down. That's the longing That you said, what is Ruvain? To go out of ourselves to become close to Hashem. Then Shimon could be successful. Then you can have him Shemaya Tishmu. Then you could be in the world and not become affected by it. Like the Rebbe said many times, when you're in a place, one of two things happen. Either they affect you or you affect them. If you are in a place and nothing's happening, that means you're not there. Physically, you might be parked there, but you're not there. If you're in a place, either you change them or they change you. So in order for a Jew to be in Mitzrayim and affect Mitzrayim, to elevate Mitzrayim, to take out all the sparks of Kedusha from Mitzrayim when they left, you have to be connected above. What?
All neshamas are the same.
What do you mean the same?
Is my neshama and your neshama the same?
No, yours is Persian, mine's American.
No, I define all.
In the origin, they're all the same.
So how come we have so much difference?
I'm telling you, because the way the neshama, your yechida and my yechida and even his yechida is the same. The essence of the neshama, even his and ours is the same.
Sure, so different.
That's in the way the neshama comes into the body. Then you have intellect, emotions, thought, speech, and action. That no two people are alike.
That affects it so much.
Of course, it affects the Aveda that you do.
And why the neshama at the end of the life doesn't want to leave?
Because the neshama sees only down here can they accomplish.
But he didn't want to come down to begin with.
That's why the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, you live against your will. At the end of the 5th parak, right? You live against your will and you die against your will. So everybody says that's the contradiction. If you're living against your will, then you're not dying against your will, right? It's this whole mashal that they give it to Mordechai ben David made it into a song called Malachol. It's a long, long time ago. It's a song in Yiddish, but they already have it in any language. It's a song about a baby is about to be born, and the angel comes over to the baby, the neshama, it's about to come into a body. He says, Neshama, I have a mission for you. You have to come into the body. And the neshama says, don't forget, it's in Gan Eden, basking in Hawaii, in the godliness, you know. Neshama says, I don't want to come down. Hashem basically, the Malach says, you have no choice, you have to come down. Comes down, you're living against your will. Then the neshama sees all the Torah mitzvahs, like it says in our Yom Yom, it's worth for neshama to suffer 70 or 80 years just to do one favor to one Jew. Just all the suffering is worth the advantage you're going to get by doing one favor to a Jew. Yeah? So then the neshama comes down and he sees, wow, this is unbelievable what I can accomplish. Then the Malach comes and said, okay, time to go back. He said, what are you kidding? I don't want to go back. Look what I'm accomplishing here that I couldn't do there. So it says, Bochik, time comes, come, let's go. But this explains the Mishnah very simply. You live against your will and you die against your will. Yeah, before you're born, the neshama doesn't want to come down. Because it's a Gan Eden. It doesn't know what this world is like. What you can accomplish in this world. You can't do mitzvahs in Gan Eden. You can only do the transformation of darkness to light is not in Gan Eden. There's no darkness there. There's only light. So what are you doing? You're like, okay, you bring a little bit more light. Big deal. But the neshama realizes after it comes down that look at what I can accomplish only in this world. He says, I don't want to come down. I don't want to leave. Okay, so he says now, Ava, because Ava is the level of the Ruvain. That's the Ava Shemach Meskidav. Ava Shmiyah Mirachek. What's the difference if you see something or you understand? Shmiyah doesn't mean hearing; it means understanding. What's the difference if you see something or if you hear something? If you see something, you have to be close to it. You can't see it if you're not there. Understanding something, I have to explain to wherever. You can explain to me what something is without seeing it. Seeing it, I got to be there. Now, seeing, we'll take 2 minutes for this. Seeing, when you see something, you become one with the thing you see. If I see this thing on the table, and you will tell me a million proofs that it's not, I'm not going to budge from my opinion because I see it. If I see it, it's not something you're going to change my mind. If you explain something to me, I understand something, you can ask me so many questions, you'll show me that I don't understand it. Re'iyah, as many proofs as you bring me that I didn't see it, I saw it. Yeah? Why? Because when you see something, it becomes one with you. Therefore, we explain, Chassidus explains the reason of the halacha that in capital punishment, the din is a witness cannot become the judge. It means if a witness testified and saw a murder, he cannot be a judge in that case. Question is, what's better than that? I have to hear it from witnesses. Now I myself, so the judge himself saw the murder. What does he need witnesses for? The din is he's not allowed to be a judge in that case. Why? Because halacha is a judge needs to be impartial. A judge halachically, v'shavtu eida v'yitzilu eida. The judge has to be able to judge and at the same time save. You have to be impartial. Once the judge saw the murder, he can never be impartial anymore.
It's the emotions that overwhelms the intellect.
Okay, but that's a different point. Here I'm just saying, when the judge saw the murder, he already cannot be impartial anymore. When I hear from witnesses, maybe they lied, maybe they're not true, whatever.
He gets emotionally engaged.
Anyway, so Re'iyah of seeing, it's not only emotion, it's more than emotion. Seeing is above emotions, by the way.
Yes.
Seeing is intellectual.
No, but the seeing, it triggers the emotion.
Yes, because intellect stimulates emotion, but that's not the point. The point is, Re'iyah, seeing is from close up, Alter Rebbe is explaining, and listening, understanding is from the distance.
Yes.